Steadily it rises.
Hey, it's ODB, the Lincoln Addict, back with another listing review. This is a 65 Lincoln Continental convertible that you see here. This is on bringatrailer.com. I'm not affiliated with this website in any way or these sellers, including this one here that we're about to review. So without further discussion, let's jump right in. You basically have a 65 Lincoln Continental convertible. And I need to update this. My apologies. This is the correct information here. I need to update the title slide, but basically for 65, you had 40,230, and you see the breakdown here, 3,356 convertibles. This was the pricing as of last week, so I didn't really go take a new screenshot, but you can see a huge range, 25 up to just north of 100,000. We're going to look at this car here through Bring a Trailer, but this is some of the information that they have provided that I've copied over. Essentially, not a lot to go on here. We do see it is an AC car. Of course, it has a 430 in 65. It's a black car. It's a convertible, dual exhaust, of course. It's not found in the Lincoln registry. However, I did submit it, so I want to let everyone know that I did do that, but it was not found. Basically, the write-up is, pretty minimalistic in the information that it provides. It does have a custom set of wheels that obviously you'll see. I'm not a huge fan of these style wheels, especially on a car like this. But again, like I've always said, that's kind of like buying a house that you don't like the paint on the walls. You can kind of change it. So I think that's the least of our worries here. Now, they do mention it was finished. We'll see this in a moment, as well as the door plate breakdown. It was dark green prior, so it was an R code for the paint. They did update the brakes, so it has four-wheel disc brakes and red painted calipers. So that's of significance if you were looking to maybe do a resto mod or didn't want the factory brakes set up. We're really going to get down to the nitty gritty here when we start looking at the photos. Just to kind of jump in here, since we're looking at the engine bay, what I see and something that you want to look for is a lot of times that, when someone's going to sell a car or maybe it's a quick flip, what I'm noticing in here is it looks like someone took a rattle can, and that's not the end of the world. A lot of people will do minor kind of touch-ups and things like that, but someone probably came in here and rattle canned. It looks like there's a couple of spots where maybe someone was spraying. They moved some stuff out of the way possibly, and you can kind of see some spots that were missed right here on this brace. This is a factory convertible brace here. But, you can see the normal surface rust on the master cylinder. That's normal. If you don't paint these or, rattle can them, they will have that light rust, if you will. But that's the one good thing, is that it was upgraded, of course, with the disc brakes in the rear. You can't have that single pot, if you will. So certainly going away from the single reservoir is a good thing. So it does look like someone kind of went in here and, again, just rattle canned some of this. Now, the other thing that sticks out to me is that it is an AC car. It does not have a fan shroud. So, to me, that's certainly something that should be there. And those fan shrouds are kind of getting expensive, anywhere $200, $300, $400 for one. And certainly, if you were running the AC, you would want to have that fan shroud on there. Of course, a non-AC car, as you may know from watching this channel, did not have a fan shroud. A couple things that stick out to me as well here is you've got the 2-port versus the 3-port fuel pump. Some people don't have issues with them, but the majority of the Lincoln community will tell you want to have the standard factory 3-port. They stopped making them. You can certainly get them from kind of the usual suspects, but this 2-port would have to go, in my opinion. It doesn't look right on there, and at the same time, the other thing is the way the fuel line is routed here. It should actually be routed up here. So again, very minor, but I want to point that out. The biggest glaring thing to me is it doesn't have the factory air cleaner, and that's just one of those pet peeves of mine. My buddy Tony and I have talked about this before. These cars, I know some people aren't the fan of the Mel 430 engine, but certainly when you switch the air cleaner out, it just doesn't look right on these cars, in my opinion. But again, that's something that you could certainly change. Air cleaners, you're probably $100-$200 to find one, for the car, depending on if you found one locally, which are kind of getting harder to do. But you could see here the R code right here. They break down the VIN, so I don't have to do that. That's dark ivy green. It was green, so keep in mind that they did paint this car. And, anytime someone paints a car, it's not the end of the world, but you just don't know what's underneath it, unfortunately. When we break down the VIN, I'll jump back over to what I usually show here. And, of course, it's a 65, and really the number we'll jump down to is that 15156. So it's the 15,156 out of the 40,230 built for that year, including the limos. And we can see here, which we'll jump back to bring a trailer in a moment, this 28L, if you've been watching the channel, I've got the grid now here, so L equals November. I was not used because it could be confused for a number 1, so I think someone pointed that out to me, so thank you. So basically, when you do the math, it's November 28th, 1964. So again, remember the 64 models began production in late August 64, and that ran all the way through early July of 65. So that's where you get the 1964 year, late in that year for the 65 production. When we jump back over here, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of the photos and what we see. Now, of course, it's black, which usually checks a box for a lot of people. People love black Lincolns for whatever reason. I guess I get it. You also have 65, which is a super desirable year. Someone recently chimed in on a post and said, hey, I talked to John Cashman, and John Cashman mentioned the 65 is the most desirable year. I've had great conversations with John. John talks to a lot of people, and that's probably the sentiment that he had at that time, which I'm not disagreeing with. A lot of people love the 64, 65s, but as many people that love those 2 years, in particular the 65, there's just as many people that love the 1s, 2s, and 3s. Again, they're just kind of in a class of their own, if you will. We could see we are missing the windshield wipers here. Not a big deal, but it would be kind of like, well, where are they? Do they come with the car? That's certainly something I would be asking if I was looking to fork over some money. It's hard to tell from some of these photos. I'm looking up in this area, as I pointed out before. If I was in person, I would want to kind of feel in here and look and kind of see, is there any body filler? What's going on here? Is this peeling back? That's going to give you a little indication of how good the paint job was. Certainly, this could be a reflection, but something just doesn't look right here. Again, not the end of the world. I don't want to, beat these folks up, but I just want for you guys to, be thinking about some things you should think about if you were looking to buy this car. When I zoom in here on the Mac, it gets a little crazy with my trackpad, but right in this area, the paint, what I'll tell you is the paint doesn't look perfect on this car. You can kind of see here, I don't want to zoom back in again, but certainly black is a super hard color to maintain. I will just tell you that. And with this car being repainted at some point, I'd be curious to know, what kind of condition was it in. I did mean to point this out. So 52, it is in LA or Los Angeles DSO for the destination sales office. So hopefully this car has spent its time in California, which would indicate that it wouldn't really have any rust, which would be great. And that's kind of what I came to the conclusion of based upon scanning through the photos, but we'll see. It is worth noting that this trim piece right here, this stainless that goes against the body behind this bumper, is missing on this side. So you'll see that. Those are, again, getting costly to find nice ones. You can find them, but there's a few things missing on this car that make me a little skeptical of it. You also see what appears to be some car wax in this area where these trim pieces are at on the passenger and driver side. So more than likely, someone just waxed this car. Not a bad thing, but certainly a little bit of indication of, okay, are we kind of waxing it up just to get good photos of it? What does it look like in person? The bumper inserts are specific for 65, as I've mentioned in the past. I actually sell replacement ones that are custom made out of billet aluminum. You can see these aren't perfect, certainly kind of probably driver quality is what I would say. It does have the 65 taillights, which are specific to that year. They've added the cages, and you can see right here the trim piece is missing. We'll see a better photo in just a moment. It sticks out here a little bit more. Here we can see the disc brakes. I've seen bigger brake setup than this. I forget if they mentioned how big of a setup this is, but certainly, it takes a decent amount of money to go and do the disc upgrade for the front and rear. The fronts had discs. The front looks like it has a bigger caliper, but certainly if you go price this out through Willwood or one of those companies, it definitely costs some money. And again, in these photos, you can kind of see that this piece is missing, a little bit oddball there. What I want to point out next, this is the photo where you can really see it missing. And you can see in here, I can't tell if this is just wax, but it looks like there's wax here. Someone just spent the day waxing this car, more than likely, or that weekend. So yeah, a couple things to keep in mind. Again, these brakes don't look super big. I can't remember if they said what the brake manufacturer was, but certainly, you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars on doing like a Willwood setup with the huge calipers and things like that. Now, what I want to do here as I continue through this is just talk about some of the pros of this listing. So it's a 65, which is super desirable. It's black. It's a convertible. There's not a lot missing. I think for the most part, it's what we would call a complete car. It does have newer exhaust, which you'll see, and you'll also see that the engine was rebuilt. As we transition into the interior, a couple things that point out. This is a tilt column car. However, there's no mention of it in the listing. Tilt column, it's estimated that maybe 10% of the cars had tilt column. And this is the indicator here. If the tilt is working, there's a button you push on the end of this column. And when you do so, it's vacuum operated and it will move up and down. And you can kind of move it into place and it locks in when you let go of the button. There's no mention of it. It probably isn't working. I have a 65 with working tilt, and it is a nice feature to have. Right now, it looks like the steering wheel, if you've noticed, is higher than it normally would be stock. So certainly if it's not working, that's something I would be asking about. They mentioned that the seats are redone. It does look like it was done in vinyl. Also, I can tell you the carpet is not specific. It's not the factory carpet. We know that because it does not have the Lincoln heel pad here. I know you might be thinking, well, big deal, and certainly no big deal if that doesn't affect you or impact you at all. But Jim Wallace, that sells the interior kits as well as the trunk and carpet kits for these cars, he makes the factory replacement carpet with a heel pad mold in it. So this definitely looks a little bit odd to me. Of course, I look at these Lincolns a lot, it seems like. We've got the front seat belts. I forget if they were standard in 65. I always forget that. I know they were not standard in the rear in 65, but certainly they're there, which is a win. We are missing a trim piece. There's a comment about that. These aren't too hard to find. Hopefully they've got it. But you can see, again, the interior. It's not super tight in terms of fit and finish. Not trying to bash, this car, but certainly that's missing, as well as this sill plate. These sill plates are getting very expensive and hard to find. So certainly, if I was looking to buy this car, I would be inquiring about it. We can also see it looks like this sill plate is missing. That stainless piece that we just saw a moment ago that's missing, it looks just like this. And we can see it's missing here. They tend to, if they're not properly aligned, when you go to open the car door, they'll get stuck on the interior before it opens and they'll pop off. But you don't see them missing too often. This was a piece that was given to the folks when they bought the car. So this is probably the original owner's name. And that's still there. It's a nice thing. Sometimes people will take these and get it redone with their own name, or they'll take it off and throw it in the glove box. It's kind of a cool thing. We can see a light on here. If I remember correctly, this light is the rear door open. So some of the stuff here is working on the dash, which we can kind of see. We are missing as well. I don't usually spend a lot of time on this. There's a little ring that goes in here that says ignition. It's just an appearance piece, if you will. And it says ignition. They're usually missing on a lot of these Lincolns. We kind of call that the unicorn part. Because they typically fall off, or when someone is working on the car, it gets lost. But those are getting much, much harder to find. We can see, again, the sill plates are missing here. It looks kind of odd. You can see the carpet. So it should not look like that. Okay, so we looked in, this is a little bit bigger photo. Again, we're missing the fan shroud, which we talked about. The battery is an interstate green battery, nothing crazy there. And we can see from the passenger side, we've got a little bit of wire loom in here, which people will add this over the course of time. It looks like someone has painted the valve covers as well as the expansion tank. Again, I mentioned this is a California car, so not only is the air cleaner incorrect, but it should have the air cleaner that has the hose that goes from here to here. And remember, if you've been watching this channel, the California cars had additional emissions, and that hose goes from the air cleaner over to here where the oil goes in, and those are getting harder to find. So if the person doesn't have it, good luck finding that specific one for a California car if that's something that you want. There's not a lot of photos underneath the car. From what we can see, it looks okay. It doesn't look rusted or rotted or anything, which is a good thing. We can see there the new exhaust, which is a win because that stuff costs some money. Over here, it looks like the factory undercoating has just peeled off. I don't think any floor pans have been redone from what I can see. So underneath the car does look solid, but I would want to investigate it a little bit more. All of this stuff is original, so nothing's really ever been taken apart. You can kind of tell just based upon the look underneath it. You can see here they did provide, this is a good thing, they did provide some photos showing that the engine has been gone through. It's hard to tell how much they did. It looks like from here with it still in the car, and then of course here is out. Did they just go and have the heads done? Did they do the bottom end and things like that? My assumption is here, maybe they did the whole thing because this all looks like maybe it was hot tanked. But it also looks like it has new freeze plugs in it. Not a bad thing that an engine's been rebuilt. Mine has been rebuilt in the 430 in my blue 64. But you just never know. You want to get as many facts as you can. Let's take a look here and wind this one down. So basically, here's the concerns, and this goes back to the listing. The top does not work. The windows do not work. There's no mention of the tilt column, but there's also no mention of the AC working. I assume that it does not. There's a 2-port fuel pump versus a 3. There's some missing parts, which I kind of mentioned. Not the end of the world. You could probably find some of those items. Maybe not so much the air cleaner with the actual hose that goes over that I mentioned, but you could probably find those parts from the usual suspects. The car was repainted, so I would want to know if there's any body filler. How good was the paint job, especially it being black. To me, I'd really have to see this in person. My conclusion is proceed with caution with this convertible. You may end up saying, hey, I'm going to buy this car, right? And let's say John Cashman was still in business. I know he's retired, or you take it to the gentleman that bought his company or whoever. You could spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 plus on getting the top working. It depends, okay? We see no photos in the trunk. Is everything there? Does it need all new relays? Does it just need one? Maybe is there one switch bad? You could fix the top maybe at your house for $100. You just don't know. Also the windows. If the window, they basically say in the listing that the windows are inoperable. That's not good because nobody's going to want to buy this car. And if you don't know what you're doing, then the top doesn't go down, the windows don't go down. If the AC doesn't work, surely you're not going to want to drive this thing around. I did forget to mention in one of these photos right here, the window switch is broken. Okay, so you're going to spend $50 to $75, maybe $100 per window switch. to either replace and or have them rebuilt. Again, you're missing some parts. Let's say this car sells for, let's just say 30,000. Depending on the paint job and things like that, you could easily put another 20 or 30 grand into it. Some people will think that's a little absurd, but certainly that could be the case. It really depends on your mechanical abilities and if you can get out there and get the top working. The windows more than likely need to be gone through, possibly new window motors. It could just be grease in the window tracks that hardens over those 60 plus years. It could be a lot of different things, but proceed with caution on this one, and good luck to the seller. I think someone will get a solid car. It just depends on how much they're going to want to put into it. Maybe they're going to want to resto mod it. Who knows? Stay on the rise, everyone. Let me know what you think in the comments. Take care.